Welcome to the Sandwich Generation podcast, a resource for adults balancing the dual responsibilities of raising children and caring for aging parents. Whether you're helping your parents downsize, explore real estate options, navigating caregiving, or looking for practical advice to help your family thrive, this is the place for you. Join us as we bring you expert insights, heartfelt stories, and actionable items to support you and your family within this unique generation.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
We made it. That was stressful to start, but we got it. Technology is wonderful when it works. Yeah.
Yep. That's always fun when it doesn't. So,
And I was so looking forward to catching up with you, Jeff, because we don't see each other regularly anymore.
That's right. It's been a while.
I know. Well, let's dive in. You want to start with the bio maybe and tell us what your focus is, who you are, what your focus is, and why you think you're here, maybe.
Well, I got an email a couple weeks ago that said, "Can you be on my podcast?" I guess that's why I'm here.
Start with that, right?
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I've been a fan of Lisa and Sara for some time. So anytime I can help, I'm happy to be here. My name's Jeff Stinson. I am what they call a certified elder law attorney. So that means I can say I'm a specialist in elder law because I have been tested and peer reviewed, and the state bar has allowed me to say I am a specialist, which is what only a handful of attorneys can say in the state of Indiana. I work with seniors who in particular are concerned about long-term care, whether that's folks that are in a crisis. So that might be a family member coming to me saying, "Mom and Dad need something." Oftentimes they don't even know what that something is. It's just Mom and Dad are deteriorating. They need some help. We don't really know what it is, but we know that it's going to be expensive. We don't know how we're going to afford that. So I help find ways to afford that long-term care, which can get up to tens of thousands of dollars these days. Through programs such as Medicaid, VA pension. Those are kind of the go-to programs to help offset the care. Key being those programs, why they do have financial criteria to qualify. You don't have to be completely destitute. There's ways to qualify without impoverishing yourself.
Draining
yourself.
All of your assets or all of your parents' assets.
Correct. And then I have a lot of folks who want to plan for that occasion. So that is the clients who recognize that they will likely need long-term care in the future, and they don't want to lose their accumulated nest egg to those costs. So we'll work on their estate plan to find ways to avoid losing everything if that time ever comes. So we want to preserve that nest egg for their spouse and sometimes for the kids as well. So that's that's kind of in a nutshell what I do for seniors. I also work with a lot of families that have special needs children as well. We plan for what happens when Mom and Dad, who's been primary caregiver, advocate, financier for those kids, what happens when they're gone. So we help set up their team, make sure that those kids are supported when Mom and Dad can't be there to do that for themselves.
Yeah. I have so many questions.
I know.
Sara,
I was like, I could go.
Do you want to go first?
We could just talk to you about tons of things, but obviously we are targeting and talking to the adult children. So if you
on this podcast, we talk to seniors, but on this podcast.
Yes, on the podcast. So if you could, an adult child that has no idea what needs to be in place, what is going to be helpful as their parents age, for them to be able to help care for their parents, like what are the things that you everybody needs to have in place, no matter what the financial situation is or what the plan is. What do we all need to be aware of and talking to our parents about?
Authority. And so what I mean by that is it doesn't matter what the financial situation of mom and dad is. If they become incapacitated and they cannot speak for themselves, a team's going to have to step up and do things for them.
Sure.
And if they haven't prearranged appointing the team they choose,
Sure. Yeah.
then we're going to have to go to a court, and a stranger, a judge who doesn't know this family, is going to decide who's going to be that person's team member, and is going to decide what's an appropriate level of what transactions are appropriate for that team and what aren't. And those might not be the transactions that the family or what mom and dad would want.
Yeah.
So I don't care.
Are you talking about probate there then? Is that probate?
Guardianship in particular is what I'm talking about there.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if mom and dad have $10,000 or $10 million. If they don't have a team in place, the kids aren't going to go anywhere. So the kids have to have the appropriate authority to step up and pay bills, manage finances, or
Sure.
I guess I should qualify. It doesn't have to be kids, but they do have to have somebody that they've chosen to step up and pay the bills, manage finances, go to the doctor with them and be that second set of ears, check on lab results, make medical appointments, be at the bedside if there's a crisis at the hospital, talking to the doctors, making medical decisions when they don't, making funeral arrangements. I've had those issues come up in my office before where a client has passed away, and actually the coroner has called me saying, we've got this guy here and we don't know what to do with him because no family was available to decide where he goes and what to do with him. So having that team in place is the biggest thing to really start with.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, Sara, you probably asked that question because when people think about an elder law attorney or just attorneys in general, we think, oh my gosh, they're going to suck us dry. They're going to charge us all the hours and it's going to be so expensive. And so we're just going to do it on our own.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I've had that conversation with families and it's like, no, you really need to make sure. I mean, we've worked with people that have been appointed by the court, and then there's big conflict between the family because one got appointed, the other didn't, and they're arguing, they're mad, they're not going to agree with anything that person says. So I just think, as an adult child, it would be better to know what your parents want, who they want to be handling those decisions, and have it documented formally with an attorney. So
that's a good point. That's another advantage to pre-planning is mom and dad have the opportunity to be as transparent as they want. I usually encourage mom and dad to be transparent, to say up ahead of time, these are the children that we've chosen to do these things. This is who we want. So there's no ambiguity there. It's one thing to even have things in writing, but then taking the next step. So there's no surprises.
Communicate it, right. Yeah, that makes sense.
When the occasion arises.
Like one child finds out they're the financial person and another finds out they're the medical person. And then, they didn't talk about that up front. They just realize it when the time comes where their parents are incapacitated. And then they have questions about that or feelings about it, and they can't really get the answers from their parents at this point. And so then it just goes undiscussed. So I like that. It's one thing to put it in writing, but then communicating it to your adult children or your caretakers when that time comes. Right.
And Sara, you make the point of the kind of do it yourself. I understand that. I put a floor in my own house once,
No way.
I like to do stuff myself as well.
Yeah.
Does it have some, little nicks here? And is it is it
Have perfect? Is it like somebody?
There's imperfections here and there.
Yeah.
Sure. So I understand people wanting to do things themselves, but I don't sell documents. What I will do, I'm proud of my documents. I've been around 25 years. These documents do have 25 years of my blood, sweat, and tears in them. There's lots. It's going to be
lots of things that you've considered over the years based on what you've seen.
Absolutely. But the value of an attorney is going to be able to go through all of these issues with you to try to avoid as many of these conflicts arising ahead of time. So we can have these discussions ahead of time. Don't put your two kids together that don't get along.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't put a kid on there that I don't want to hurt their feelings. I mean, I've had that conversation just this week.
A lot.
I don't want to hurt my daughter's feelings by leaving her off. Well, you just told me your daughter has declared bankruptcy twice, and every time you give her $1, she spends $2. We don't really, you probably really don't want her on your finances. If she's in charge of your finances, who knows what will happen?
Yeah.
I know you love your daughter, but probably don't want her to be in charge of finances there. So what an attorney can do is kind of point out these things that maybe you're not thinking of. That's the value of an attorney. Besides just making sure, I will tell you how many times I've seen do-it-yourself plans that just aren't up to snuff. They don't sign correctly. These plans are designed to, they may have formalities that are designed that adheres to Texas law, but don't adhere to Indiana law. So I've seen a lot of messes in the past. An attorney can also make sure the authority that you need is in here. I had that just this week as well, where a power of attorney is trying to do something for someone, and the authority wasn't in the power of attorney because they made the power of attorney themselves. And I said, well, you can't do this because you don't have that authority.
And we've seen that on the real estate side.
Sure.
Where there's power of attorney that does not include the real estate part. Yeah. So there's definitely things that can be left out that can be very important that they're going to need. So
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I did make the point, we talk to seniors every day. In fact, you're going to be on one of our quarterly now panels where we're talking to seniors, but here on the Sandwich Generation, we're targeting mostly adult children. What are some legal triggers that adult children can be looking for in their parents? Let's say like several adult children that we work with live in other parts of the country. So you mentioned like some documents might be Texas documents, but the parents are here, so they should be Indiana documents, which is a whole bunny trail we could go down. But let's say, adult daughter lives in Arizona, they're working full time, raising their children, and mom and dad are still back here in Indiana because this is where they're born and raised. This is where their life is, and their health is declining. Children come back maybe once or twice a year for the holidays. What are some triggers, maybe when they're talking to them on the phone, when they visit, they could be looking for that they need to start thinking about forming a relationship with you? Maybe adult children or the senior already has a relationship with you, but at what point should the adult child step in?
That's a great question. My busiest time is around the holidays, and there's a reason for that. And that's because that's typically when out-of-state children come home and they visit. The problem is, when you talk to mom and dad on the phone, you don't necessarily notice decline and limitations. And when you come in for Thanksgiving or you come in for Christmas, that's when you start to notice things like mom's not keeping the house like she used to. Dad left the stove on when we left the other day. Or the neighbor starts coming over and saying, I've noticed the other day he got in the car and he just sat there for an hour and didn't go anywhere. I'm kind of worried about. That's when you start hearing these stories. And so there's a reason. That's a reason why I'm so busy during that time of year.
because they spend extended periods of time with them and see the little nuances that they wouldn't so much see on a 20-minute phone call.
Right. You really want to make sure that you are checking in with mom and dad on a regular basis as they're getting old. I would make sure that you are, make sure that you know the neighbors. Make sure that you know their friends.
Sure.
Because oftentimes these are the folks that will reach out to you. Many times this is what happens is the kids will get a phone call from a friend who says, your mom is doing some funny things. You might want to come check on her.
Yeah.
So don't write that off as a nosy neighbor.
Don't write that off as a
Don't write that off.
Don't write that off as Margaret is just being paranoid.
She has too much time on her hands. Margaret, mind your business.
Right. There may very well be something going on there. And that's a trigger to come check in, and it may be time to get a hold of an attorney at that point. Fortunately, a lot of my clients will bring their family even to their initial meeting when they're setting up their plan. Now, obviously, mom and dad are my clients. We start with the conversation of, you have attorney-client privilege with me. I don't have that privilege with your kids. And if you want to talk to me about things that you don't want your kids to know, they need to leave. And I'm happy to have them leave. But they're here at your invitation. And most of them want them in the meeting. So a lot of them already know me, have been introduced to me. They know who I am. For those that don't know who I am, I encourage them to at least know where their stuff is, know who they've worked with, so that there is, as they have an issue, they know who to call. So that's all part of that. If I'm out of state, I get a call from friend Margaret, says mom's not doing things, can check in with mom. Then maybe the next phone call is, after I've checked in with mom and doctor, things aren't going quite right. I know that she's worked with the Stinson law firm, so I can call them. Then we can take it from there. I hold a lot of original documents in escrow, so my next step is to clarify with the doctor, per my agreement with the client. If the client can't express to me that they're incapacitated, then I get a letter from the doctor that they're incapacitated. Then I can start working with the family member from there.
Is that a difficult or challenging thing to get sometimes with the doctors? I'm just curious. It made me think of that.
I have not had issues recently. There was a time, I think when HIPAA first become a thing. So when that was first implemented, the penalties on that are so steep that the physician, the medical community was taking such a strict interpretation of that law. They were very careful. In particular, was a problem in guardianship cases where I'm trying to prove this person's incapacitated, and I need medical evidence to prove that, but the doctor won't release that evidence because only the person who's incapacitated can consent to getting the evidence. So we just have this
insane.
Like a circle.
Fortunately, that hasn't been a big issue anymore. And a lot of times, the doctors understand. They're trying to work with us on those issues. It's those fringe issues that have become a problem. However, I'm always going to work with my client first. I'm going to talk to my client before I release a document. So they're my client. So if the kids call me, I'm going to check in with the client first. Knock on wood, I've never had a kid try to pull something funny and say, mom and dad is incapacitated, I need their power of attorney. And then I call mom and dad and they say, why would they want that? I'm fine.
Right.
I haven't never had that come up, but I do check in with mom and dad just for that purpose. I don't just jump straight into getting a doctor's letter. So you got to do some due diligence there as well.
Another reason to have an elder law attorney that understands all those nuances that need to be done. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you were talking earlier, I was thinking so many things have changed too. Specifically when all the changes with Medicaid happened. And there's no way, unless you're in this every single day, to know all of those little nuances, right? It's your job as an elder law attorney to know the loopholes or whatever there might be that for a particular client, depending on their situation.
Lots and lots of changes in my I always make the joke, I'm really 25 years old. It's just dealing with Medicaid that made me gray and bald. But
you and me both, except mine's not Medicaid.
But in all seriousness, the systems have gotten to the point where I don't know how anyone who has not represented gets through a Medicaid application or a VA application.
Or a VA.
In fact, the error rate this year alone with our Medicaid applications is about 100%. I can't think of any of our applications who were approved correctly the first time away. There's always something we have to go back and the unfortunate thing is if you're not represented, you probably don't know that there's been an error sometimes. Obviously,
because they don't
denial. But even then, some people think, oh, well, they deny me. I must not be eligible.
They don't think that it's the person completing the form. I want to ask you about that specifically because you and I have talked about this offline before about there are companies out there who offer Medicaid application assistance. What's the difference between, I don't know, a company like an insurance company doing that and an elder law attorney helping someone fill out a Medicaid or VA application?
Okay, let me address them separately. So a Medicaid application, an individual can help you complete a Medicaid application and file a Medicaid application and even talk to the agency on your behalf. What they can't do necessarily is advocate for you. That's what an attorney does. So if there's a rule, for example, they're trying to say this should be exempt because of this law, that's delving into a legal argument. So that's really an attorney. Bigger picture though, I have a duty to clients. I have a license to clients. So if I make a mistake, first of all, I have malpractice insurance. Mr. Insurance guy may not have that same insurance. Also, I make a mistake, I have an obligation to the Indiana Supreme Court. I have discipline. I can be disciplined if I screw something up. Mr. Insurance
guy.
So
you're also acting as a fiduciary for your client, which is you have to act in their best interest.
Well, that's ethically, I'm bound by that.
Right.
And I'm not besmirching Mr. Insurance guy. I'm just kind of pointing out some
or whomever. Right.
So that's one of the significant differences there. There's only so far that the insurance salesman can do. For example, when it gets to particularly a lot of planning will also require some legal planning to go along with that.
Right.
Filing an application is one thing, but the eligibility
it's just part of the whole puzzle. Yeah.
A nursing facility, a business office manager at a nursing facility can file an application, but if you have to make a legal argument or if there's some eligibility planning to go along with that, that's going to require an attorney. But again, even if it's just filing an application, I've got things that a layman won't have, like insurance. I've got obligations to my licensing authority. There's other things that I have that others might not have. Now, on the VA side, I will point out it's kind of the same difference. I mean, the same things there. But in addition to that, no one, absolutely no one can charge to file a VA application. That is illegal.
Yep.
And I know there are some folks out there that charge to file a VA application. And if they are doing that, that is wrong. That is illegal to do that. Now, I know that, they might do that as a complimentary service because they are a customer. So, you're a customer of my financial, I'm a financial advisor. You're one of my customers. That's okay. But saying I'm going to charge you $500 to file this VA application, that is blatantly illegal. So if someone is out there doing that, I would run, because that is wrong. They cannot do that. And I would report them to the VA, actually.
Yeah. I used to, back in my days when I worked in a community setting, we would have people move in all the time and ask about the veterans VA benefits, that kind of thing. And I would always just tell them, you're more than welcome to fill it out yourself, but I have yet to have a resident or a family member come back and actually get approved through the VA, because no one can tell you what they're actually looking for on that application. The attorneys have done it enough to now, kind of what they're looking for, but we don't. Just the regular Joe Schmo on the street has no idea what the VA is actually trying to find on that application.
Well, they have so many little esoteric things. For example, I learned very early in my VA application filing that you never leave a blank in the application. They will ship it back. Even if the question does not apply to the applicant, you put 0 or not applicable in that blank, or they don't process the application. So
wow, that's crazy.
If your client has no children and you skip the entire children page, they don't process the application. You have to put a big X through the children page, because I guess they assume that you're trying to pull a fast one by not filling in the children page, whatever that might be. So there's little things like that. And, another thing I thought of there, another thing that an attorney can do that a layman can't, they file the application, they get whatever decision, and that's as far as they can go.
Right.
What an attorney can do is, once the decision's made, if the decision's wrong, they can push it further.
Right.
They can, we can say, hey, this Medicaid decision is not correct. You need to fix it. Those are things we can do that a layman can't.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about if we're trying to do the due diligence and make sure that things are in place ahead of time, should our parents need to apply for Medicaid or, use VA benefits, that kind of thing, how early should these planning things be happening?
Sure. I'm going to work backwards. So a good rule of thumb, and keep in mind, let me qualify this. I don't work with multi-millionaires. If someone has millions of dollars, they don't need my services. They can afford their long-term care themselves. If I have millions of dollars, I should be able to generate enough income off of that to afford my long-term care without dipping into my net worth significantly. It's the folks that are worth thousands. Occasionally, maybe they might creep up to that $1 million level, but most of these folks are worth that thousands level. With that said, a good rule of thumb is, if you're single, if you wait to the day you need care, I can protect about half of what you have. If you start earlier than that, I can protect more. Now, a married couple, that's a little different, because if you're married and only one of you need care, I can generally protect everything just by the way the rules are set up. They're more forgiving for a spouse at home.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a good rule of thumb. If you want to wait till there's a crisis, you want to kind of roll the dice, I can still protect some, but it's only going to be about half. But if you really want to protect more than that, you really got to start years in advance. And everyone knows about I say everyone, most people hear about the 60-month look back. That's kind of what I'm referring to there. You want to start 5 years in advance if you really want to protect more than that half.
Yeah, because when Medicaid has the 5-year look back, is VA 5 years now too?
VA is 3 years.
Okay, that's
okay. Yeah. So we like stories on this podcast without divulging any private, issues, which don't worry about with you. What is and if you need time to think about this, we can certainly fill the gaps, but tell us a story about maybe one of your favorite clients, recent or in the past, that you were able to help in a big way that maybe our listeners could relate to.
Oh, there's I don't know, there's too many.
So many, right? I know. We always say we could write a book on this podcast. We're like, we could write a book with all the stories.
Yeah. I have a friend who's also he's a trial attorney, and we were working together on a case once, and we're actually a minor was the client in this case. He had settled the case. I was helping set up a trust for the minor. Dad was not an upstanding citizen, let's put it that way. And when Dad couldn't spend the settlement on himself, he was ready to accost me in the parking lot of my office. And so I called my friend up and said, I don't want this case anymore. I don't need it. And he said, what's the problem? And I said, well, the guy threatened to beat me up in my parking lot in my office. And he's like,
oh my gosh,
it happens to me all the time. And I said, it doesn't happen to me. I get hugs and thank yous from my clients. So they don't qualify that as my
crazy.
I think through my stories.
Well, one of my questions, and we'll get to it later, was about how you got into this particular type of law, but maybe there's a connection. That's funny. Wow. Well, it's not funny. It probably wasn't funny for you at the time.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that's an outlier. The stories of the negative stories are far, far fewer than the wonderful stories of who I work with. I'll start with I had a woman. She was struggling to care for her husband at home. She came to see us. This is kind of a typical client. It's just she was the type of person, and still is the type of person. Her husband has since passed away, but she still regularly checks in with us. That's why she sticks out in my mind. She's just a beautiful human being. Very grateful to us. That's why she sticks out. But she was struggling to take care of her husband. They were originally from a different country. So as his dementia progressed, he lost the ability to speak English. So not only was she struggling with caregiving, but outside caregivers, finding somebody, because he right now only could understand and speak his native language. So she was really struggling there. And she was just getting worn out. They had limited means. She never worked. He was the breadwinner. So I was able to, through working with my knowledge of the Medicaid rules, was able to secure Medicaid benefits so that she could take him to adult daycare every Monday through Friday. That gave her respite during the days, Monday through Friday, so she could do those things. Sometimes it would just allow her to sleep during the day. Other times it just allowed her to go grocery shopping or, visit with friends, things like walk the dog. I know that
take care of herself. We know how often the caregiver
Right.
themselves
Yeah.
on the back burner. Yeah.
Right. And by having Medicaid cover those hours during the day, that freed up their budget where they were paying for some home care during the week. Well, they were able to use those hours during the weekend, so she had some additional free time. So basically, she went from being primary caregiver to not being a caregiver at all. I mean, she was there during the night to make sure he slept through the night. She was so grateful, and you could tell the exhaustion went away within weeks. And
Oh,
she
wow.
would, she still will bring us cookies every once in a while, or something every once in a while. But that's one where I get a hug all the time. Every time she comes in, she's got to find us.
Oh, that's great.
It's not just me; it's my staff that she worked with. She's got to give them a hug as well. But she also, I thank her because she's my number one testimonial as well. She's kind of my ambassador to the firm. She's sent many clients to us because she just thinks we walk on water.
You were helpful.
And me, I just think, well, that's what I do every day. But
you're like, I just did my job.
I just did what I'm supposed to do. But it does kind of give me pause to remember that what I do can really impact lives here. But that's just a snippet of that's what I do every day, and it doesn't have to be adult daycare. It's all kinds of ways to afford long-term care that people otherwise are struggling to do. There's lots of people out there that are taking care of a loved one by themselves that may not have to, because there are resources out there to help. They just need to reach out and get those things in place.
Yeah, that's great. So you talk about that. Let's go to kind of the emotional side of planning. Those feelings of just being emotionally overwhelmed, not just with the planning piece of it, but just like everything. How do you get involved in, and if so, how do you help work through that emotional side of things?
We really work hard to stay empathetic and understanding to what folks are going through. I have 3 very good
I know you
staff.
have a great team. Yes, I was getting ready to say you have a wonderful team.
That's key. And every one of my cases, we work as a team. I have 2 senior paralegals. They are the case managers on every team, and they are wonderful.
Yeah.
What we try to focus on is this. If we're working on a Medicaid eligibility plan for somebody, we're trying to accomplish a key date. We want to establish eligibility by June 1st. And there's 8 things that the family has to accomplish by June 1st to get there. And there's 20 things on the list of evidence we need them to obtain for us for the application that I have to present to the Medicaid agency. That's just one of many things that they're dealing with. Sometimes they're dealing with admitting their loved one to, whether that's an assisted living or a nursing facility or adult daycare, or, they're dealing with that. Or maybe it's after admission and they're dealing with, getting care started or arranged, or, there's getting the care plan set up. There's all of those things. And it's mom calling on a daily basis saying, I don't want to be here. Why did you do this? And, so they're being pulled in all these different directions. So we work really hard to try to make sure that we're staying in context of everything they're dealing with here. I mean, it'd be real easy to say, daggone it, you're not going to get this done. If you don't get this done, you're not going to get your eligibility in place. So, we try to stay understanding. We try to, here's the pros of getting this done by June 1st. Here's the drawback. We understand if you don't get it done by then, we may be looking at July, but this is and how about we try to do this, and this for you? Obviously, we don't have the capacity to do everything for everybody, but if there's a few tasks we can take off their plate, we try to do that when we can. So that's what we try to focus on there to help folks. Otherwise, you'd be, I don't know, you'd just be one of those corporate jerks if you just kind of said, you got to be done
We're
by
doing
June.
this, and this.
Right.
You
got to get this stuff checked off, or you're out. That just doesn't work in this business. You got to have some compassion and understanding in what you do, because you have to be mindful of all the other things that folks are going through. Fortunately, I think most of my staff has had the perspective, and even myself have had the perspective of going through this process. I've had a grandmother
with loved ones
two
of our own,
grandmothers, but one grandmother in particular that I was kind of from the ground floor of noticing she had declined, going through a crisis of a fall and hospitalization, rehab, assisted living, VA to help pay for assisted living, deterioration, nursing facility, Medicaid occupation to cover nursing facility, further deterioration to memory care, all of those things. I had been through that process. So, I kind of have some context that maybe some other folks that are in this business don't. So I understand that I'm just one small piece to a huge puzzle that people are working.
You're one cog in the wheel. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. Sure.
And I think that's really something that, the adult child can hopefully take away from this, is that if you see your parent or parents, but one of them kind of going through or talking about this process of having to meet with the attorney and get these things in place, that should be a sign that you need to ask if they need your help or want your help gathering those items, because it can be overwhelming for them, especially if the person that's trying to gather this information is not the person that typically took care of that kind of stuff in their life. I've seen that a few times where, one spouse was kind of the financial person, right? They paid the bills, they did the taxes, they handled all that stuff. And now the other spouse is trying to find these items that are needed. That can be really overwhelming for them. So, as an adult child, I just would encourage them to see how you can help. Maybe don't even ask sometimes, just say, I would love to gather that information up for you and help you with that, because a lot of times they're going to tell you no if you ask. So
Sarah,
right.
That happens more often than not, where the kids kind of sit back and say, I'm going to be respectful of, I think I need to be respectful of mom in this situation. And all that's doing is mom is putting more stress on mom, and she's struggling. And you know what happens? 9 times out of 10, mom loses a month of eligibility, creates more stress because she just wrote a $10,000 bill to the nursing facility. Kid still gets involved then and gets everything in place so that we don't miss another month. Just step up and do it. Mom will be grateful, even if she's prideful and wants to resist. She'll be grateful down the road. I guarantee it.
And I think just asking, how can I help you, mom or dad or loved one? How can I help? What are the areas where you're struggling the most? Is it the getting the planning, the financial planning? Is it the legal stuff? Was it, can I help with the animals? Whatever it might be, just maybe asking, just how can I help?
Yeah. We'll often try to go through. It's been our experience that you need to call the life insurance company right now because it takes a little while to do this. You need to call the area aging agency right now because it takes some time to do this. Then kind of look towards other family members in those situations to say, how do you feel about letting this person do this so you're not so overwhelmed?
Yeah.
Try to start those conversations.
Like kind of help prioritize for them what's immediately needs to be done versus, kind of pass this to someone else. I think that's great. And you are the person that's going to know that stuff because you do it every day, but
and every day.
That's it. Because it can get real easy to get worn down in this process and want to give up because it's like, all this stuff I have to do. And oftentimes, we say, don't shoot the messenger. It's Medicaid that wants this. It's VA that wants this. But we try the best to set expectations ahead of time. And it's something I'm still refining over the years to make sure people know what they're getting into before we start.
Right.
Because there's a great benefit here, but it does take a little work to get there. So I don't want people to get mired in the detail. I want them you got to persevere. And sometimes that's part of our job too, is just kind of be that cheerleader to say, you're doing fine. You're getting there. Don't give up. You're
too. Yeah.
2/3 of the way there. There's a little bit more, but you're going to get there.
The reward is there.
Too.
Got to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, people are just so overwhelmed because there is so much to think about. And as we age, our bodies deteriorate. We have less, we have less room for the details of life and the tasks that are in front of us. So we get overwhelmed easily. And when we get overwhelmed, we just sometimes don't do anything just to alleviate some of that overwhelm. So, which can hurt worse in the end. So, well, this has been great. What else do you have, Sara?
I was going to say, I know we need to be mindful of Jeff's time. So I know you're a busy person. How about just give us a little bit info on how people can contact you and kind of what that first initial step would look like if they want to reach out to you, Jeff?
Sure. So initially, the initial contact's always going to be through my office manager / intake coordinator. Her name is Samantha. She's very good. She's been with me for quite some time now, so well experienced. She's going to take you through our intake process. So what she does is she asks lots and lots of questions. I know some firms do a free consultation. A lot of times what that free consultation entails is what Samantha is doing. She's kind of assessing, trying to pull out what your goals are, what your needs are, what the caller's needs are, and whether we can help. Then she's going to schedule you for an appointment with me and send out a questionnaire. That's electronic now, but if you're not electronic savvy, we'll still have a paper form that helps gather some information for me, or I guess I should qualify another attorney at our firm, because we are expanding. We'll have additional folks besides me. Don't worry, they're going to be well trained, as qualified as I am. They're working for me, so they'll be just as good as me. But she will then send that out so that before the meeting, the attorneys have an opportunity to kind of get to know you a little bit better, know the facts of the situation, know your goals ahead of time, and can spot some issues so that when that meeting occurs, we know we can really just kind of dive right in and really kind of
get to work
on talking more about your goals, helping you go through issues, then get into kind of educating and getting through strategies so that we can run into that first step on a project. You're going to leave that meeting with, here's a project. Here's what we can do for you. Our intake process is a flat charge of $395. I have not changed that since I opened my own doors in 2013. That is always applied as a down payment on a project. That's always going to be flat fee. I guess I should quote. It's not always going to be flat fee, but 95% of the time is flat fee. As far as getting a hold of me, if I can, my website is stinsonlawfirm.com, STINSON lawfirm.com. You can also reach me by email at info@stinsonlawfirm.com, or phone is 317-622-8181. Yep, go ahead.
622-8181, 317-622-8181.
Yep, that's it.
Right. Okay. I interrupted you there. I was on your website and I saw the contact us form, and it's right front and center too when you go there. So
that's right.
And so that goes into your office, I'm assuming, and then Samantha would reach out.
Will reach out to you. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that you're expanding. That means that you're helping a lot of people, and you need more people to help more people.
Yeah. There just wasn't enough of me to go around, and
Yeah.
I want to help. And that's just it. I want to help more people. I hate turning folks away. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. So just had a client that said, boy, if I didn't have to wait if there wasn't somebody, if you weren't as good as you are, I wouldn't have waited as long as I did.
Wouldn't. Oh, well, that's a testament to the kind of service that you're giving to your clients. So yeah. We like that. Yeah. Well, we could talk for hours, I think, and get caught up on everything. But like Sara said, we want to be respectful of your time. You're clearly very busy, but we've so appreciated you on the podcast today, and we'll get this out to our audience, and hopefully there's some great nuggets that they got out of this today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Well, we will be back next week with another episode. So in the meantime, please share the episodes, share the podcast, give us some comments, things you'd like to hear and see, and we will see you again next week.